Russia, mga sangkay, nag-warning na nga ba ng ikatlong digmaang pandaigdigan? Yan po ang ating aalamin ngayon, mga sangkay, sa ating Global News. Okay guys, ito po, alamin po natin itong patungkol sa problema ng Russia at Ukraine. Ang Russia nga ba, kasi alam nyo, hindi lamang, ang totoo po talaga, mga sangkay, hindi po Ukraine yung talagang pinakakalaban ng Russia. Alam nyo kung ano? Ang NATO. Okay? Ang NATO. Yung mga miyembrong bansa, kasama po dyan yung Amerika, na malamang. Sila po yung nangunguna dyan, mga sangkay. Ngayon, alamin po natin sa balitang ito. But anyway, before we start, pakicheck po muna mga sangkay kung kayo na po ay nakapag-subscribe. Kung hindi pa, pakipindot po yung subscribe button. Nasa ibaba lamang po yan mga sangkay. Tapos i-click nyo po yung bell at i-click nyo po yung all. Ulitin ko, i-click nyo po yung subscribe. Nasa ibaba lamang po. Tapos i-click nyo po yung bell at i-click nyo po yung all. Dahil dito, 1.09 million subscribers na po tayo dito sa YouTube. At syempre kung kayo po ay nasa Facebook, i-like o i-follow nyo po yung ating Facebook page. Okay? Dito kasi nag-upload tayo ng mga trending topics at syempre yung mga pandaigdigang balita na napakahalaga nito pag-usapan. So ito na mga sangkay, tingnan po natin. Ito po yung balita. Why NATO refused membership to Ukraine? Bakit daw po ang NATO mukhang iningi-tsapwera po mga sangkay ang membership ng Ukraine? So why? Dahil nga ba natatakot po sila kay Putin na tutuhanin itong sinasabing ikatlong digmaang pandaigdigan? Well, ito, panoorin po natin.
Let me show you a picture that sums up the takeaways so far. Look at this. It was clicked during the family photo after the roundtable. Look at President Zelensky. He's standing all...
Okay. Yan po ngayon yung isa sa napag-uusapan sa international news, mga sangkay. Itong picture po ni Zelensky na tila baga wala pong pumapansin sa kanya. Ito ha.
That sums up the takeaways so far. Look at this. It was clicked during the family photo after the roundtable.
Ito, mga taga-NATO to ha. Mga sangkay, kawawa naman. Tignan nyo to. Parang walang pakialam yung mga taga-Western kay... Ito, mga sangkay, alam nyo, itong si Zelensky, inuuto lamang kasi yan ng NATO eh. Sila po, ginawa pa po sila eh. Sila po yung ginawang frontline sa digmaan, tapos, wala naman pong nagagawang tulong ito. Pagdating po sa kanila mga kasundaluhan, itong NATO, na dapat sila po yung nakikipagdigma sa Russia.
Look at President Zelensky. He's standing all alone. The NATO leaders are talking and having a good laugh. The Ukrainian leader is all alone.
Agoy!
At war and at the mercy of the West. This should be a reality check for Ukraine. They were led on and into a war only to be left out of NATO. Today will be another day of frustration for them. Ukraine wants to be a member and it wants it now, but NATO says you're not ready.
Okay, so yung Ukraine, gusto nang maging member. Ito yung presidente ng Ukraine, gusto maging member ng NATO. Pero anong sagot ng NATO? Hindi pa napapanahon. Hindi pa ba nila napapansin na inuuto lamang po sila nitong NATO?
And this is how it played out. First came the roundtable. NATO leaders arrived, clicked pictures, and got down to business. Their agenda had three things: Ukraine, Russia, and China. Then there were multiple bilaterals. Turkey's Erdogan met Joe Biden and Rishi Sunak. France's Macron met leaders from Australia and New Zealand. It was like a diplomatic roulette. In the end came the joint statement, and with it, Ukraine's hopes were dashed. Let me quote what it says.
Yan na.
We will be in a position to extend an invitation to Ukraine to join the alliance when allies agree and conditions are met.
Nako. Wala talaga mga sangkay. Itsapwera rin talaga itong Ukraine. Ginawa lamang po silang battlefield, yung lugar nila. Tapos ang masama doon, sila mga sangkay yung ginawang pambala laban po sa Russia.
And what are these conditions? The statement doesn't say. But NATO leaders have raised multiple issues, like ending the war, reforming government agencies, cracking down on corruption. These are the conditions. NATO says do all of this and you can be a member.
Grabe, no? Di na lang sabihin na, wag, ayaw namin maging member kayo dahil nga nag-warning ang Russia ng ikatlong digmaang pandaigdigan. Baka magkatotoo.
But this is a setback for Ukraine. A membership after 10 years doesn't help. Neither do vague commitments. Kiev wants clarity and intent from NATO. Maybe a timetable on how long membership will take. Instead, this is what they got.
There is a full-fledged war. And therefore, I think all allies agree that when a war is going on,
Ito po yung Secretary General ng NATO.
that's not the time for making Ukraine a full member of the alliance.
Sus Maria.
So how is Zelensky taking it? As you would expect, he probably knew what was coming. Before landing in Lithuania, he had called NATO's position absurd and weak. But he hasn't given up. Earlier today, he arrived at the summit venue for day 2 of the talks. He was asked about his expectations, and this is what he said.
I think the invitation to NATO, and we want to be on the same page with everybody, with all the understanding. And for today, what we hear and understand that we will have this invitation when security measures will allow. Yes.
I know it sounds like a broken record, but it also shows
Kawawa no? Mga sangkay, para po siyang para po siyang nagmamakaawa na po sa NATO. Ay, salin nyo naman kami sa Salin nyo naman kami sa grupo nyo.
how desperate Ukraine is. Their counter-offensive is not going to plan. It's too slow and too costly. Plus, Russia is striking back hard. On Tuesday, they hit 3 Ukrainian cities with airstrikes: Kiev, Odessa, and Kherson. So Zelensky has boxed himself into a corner. His entire strategy is based on Western and NATO support, their weapons, their
Naku.
political backing, their money.
Nung sinusuportahan sila ng NATO ng pera, sinusuportahan po sila ng mga armas sa pandigma. Pero ang problema, hindi po tumutulong pagdating po sa mga pisikal o mga tao na siyang, yung mga militar po ng NATO. Wala po silang pinapadala. Bakit? Natatakot po sila kay Putin.
If NATO is half-hearted, Zelensky is in trouble. And Russia knows this. Their leaders are building more pressure on NATO. Look at what their former president, Dmitry Medvedev, said. I'm quoting again. The completely
Ito dating presidente ng Russia.
crazy West could not come up with anything else. In fact, it's a dead end. World War III is getting closer.
Grabe The completely crazy West could not come up with anything else. In fact, sabi po dito, it's a dead end. World War III is getting closer. Matinding babala yan, mga sangkay. Mukhang, naku po, naway hindi po maganap, mga sangkay. But, well, kung mangyayari, it's in the Bible. Nasa Biblia po yan, mga sangkay. In the last days, mangyayari talaga yung mga ganitong klaseng kaguluhan sa ating mundo. Pero hanggat maaari, manawagan pa rin po tayo ng kapayapaan, mga sangkay. Dahil lahat naman ng propesiya ng nasa Biblia, matutupad hindi ayon sa kalooban ng tao, kundi sa kalooban po ng ating manlilikha.
This is a former Russian president and a Putin confidant. Their foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, has also given a statement. He says the war will end when NATO stops using Ukraine to defeat Russia. Now, both these men are close to Putin.
Okay, ayan. Matatapos lamang daw po itong gera na ito, itong gulo, kung itong NATO ay titigil na po sa pang-uuto sa Ukraine. Diba?
Their statements sum up the Russian mentality. A, they're not backing down. And B, if the West doesn't stop supporting Ukraine, things could get out of hand. The fighting could spill over. More countries could get dragged in. And as Medvedev said, there could be World War III.
Kumbaga, kung hindi po titigil ang Western countries, ang mangyayari, baka mapunta sa ikatlong digmaang pandaigdigan. Yun na po ang mas delikado.
This sort of language is meant to trigger. You hear World War III, you shudder. And that's exactly what Russia is trying to do. The question is, how will NATO respond to all of this? Well, they're not giving the membership yet, but they are giving weapons.
'Di ba? Hindi pa ang sinasabi po dito sa nagbabalita, hindi po ang NATO nagbibigay ng slot ng upuan sa Ukraine para maging member ang Ukraine sa NATO. But what they are doing is sinusuportahan po nila ang Ukraine sa pamamagitan po ng mga armas. Sa madaling sabi, ang ginawang mga sundalo na pandigma nitong Ukraine, nitong NATO, ang Ukraine. Pero sila lang ang taga-feed, taga-bato ng mga armas. Pero wala po silang pinapadalang tao. 'Di ba? At dito naaasar na po sila Putin. Kaya sabi po dito, papalapit na po tayo sa ikatlong digmaang pandaigdigan. And let's pray na hindi maganap ito.
Germany, France, and the US have announced more weapons. The G7 nations are also considering a long-term security package.
Ang kinakatakot ko dito, pag magpalipad po itong si Putin ng kanyang mga nuclear weapon papuntang Western countries.
What does that mean? Something similar to what Israel has. They get military aid worth $3.8 billion every year, but no collective defense. The G7 could offer something similar to Ukraine, I guess anything but NATO membership. While the summit focused on today's war, it also discussed future ones. I'm talking about the showdown with China. The NATO statement mentions China 16 times. 16 times in one statement. Listen to this. The People's Republic of China's stated ambitions and coercive policies challenge our interests, security, and values. NATO is seriously looking at the Indo-Pacific. 4 countries from the region attended the summit: Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and Japan. Naturally, China was not happy. It has opposed the invitation to these countries. It has also promised a quote-unquote resolute response if NATO moves in this direction. China's state media is doing the heavy lifting. The editorials are fuming at NATO, the usual stuff about Cold War mentality. So looking back, what do we make of this NATO summit? Until last year, this alliance was fading into obscurity. French President Macron had even called it brain dead. But now it's alive. Alive, kicking and expanding. 2 new members have joined the alliance in the last few months. It has also set its eyes on the Indo-Pacific. None of this was supposed to happen. The Ukraine war was said to be about a country's sovereignty and its right to choose, about powerful countries bullying their neighbors. But look what it has become now. The West has used the war to fuel its military complex, to add new members to NATO, to revive an irrelevant alliance. Meanwhile, Ukraine stands alone and desperate.
Kawawa, no? Kawawa yung Ukraine eh. Ang Ukraine talagang gusto po nilang wala eh. Ayaw ng NATO eh. So ngayon mga sangkay, ito po, nag-warning ang Russia ng ikatlong digmaang pandaigdigan. Kumbaga, papalapit na daw po tayo ng papalapit. And what is your opinion regarding po dito? Tingin nyo ba magkakaroon po talaga ng ikatlong digmaang pandaigdigan at pagmumulan po itong digmaan doon sa Ukraine? Well, comment nyo po sa ibabang inyong mga opinion. And now I invite you to please subscribe my YouTube channel, Sangkay Revelation. Hanapin nyo lamang po ito sa YouTube at kapag nakita nyo na click the subscribe, click the bell and click all. So ako na po ay magpapaalam hanggang sa muli. This is me, Sangkay Janjan. Palagi nyo pong tatandaan that Jesus loves you. God bless everyone.